Rushing into danger when everyone wants to escape. Those are firefighters, a job that few people dare to do. They don't do their job to receive honor, and they don't expect to be grateful to everyone. It is simply the task that each of them wants to perform to protect the safety of people and the peace of society. Fireworks of My Heart, the film portrays a part of the life a firefighter must go through. In addition, the film also talks about the arduous first love of a firefighter and a doctor. First love is an unforgettable love. Events caused them to separate for 10 years. After 10 years of separation, will their hearts still vibrate? What joys and feelings will the hidden corners of the firefighter and doctor have that are difficult for them to express? Let's not keep you waiting any longer, let's get into the review. This is the fire prevention team. That handsome guy is Song Yen. Today while on duty, he unfortunately got hit in the tooth. So his teammates together took him to the hospital. After going into the clinic to look at the doctor, he suddenly stopped for about 10 seconds. Memories of his beautiful youth began to return. 10 years ago, Song Yen played more than he studied, but his beauty was undeniable. The first time he met Su Qin, he liked her. After spending some time together, Su Qin also developed feelings for Song Yen. When both of them were passionately in love during their beautiful youth, family was the thing that hindered this relationship. Being opposed by her family, Su Qin resolutely gave up this passionate love affair. Her leaving without looking back made Song Yen feel a lot of resentment. That was how the couple broke up. When Su Qin asked who needed to be examined, all his teammates said in unison that it was him. Su Qin's voice pulled Song Yen back to reality. The name was familiar and the face was extremely familiar to him. Originally, she was not in charge of the dental department, but because this is a movie, she is in this department. When she asked Song Yen to take off his mask, he ran away. That action and eyes as bright as sunlight reminded Su Qin of a person who was both familiar and also a fleeting stranger to her. After thinking for a while, she decided to run out and take a look. Upon arriving, Song Yen and his teammates boarded the fire truck. His teammates seemed curious about his behavior, but he still told them to leave. His face was as cold as ice, but when the car passed by, he still looked up at his old love through the rearview mirror. The first love of both of them remained hidden in their hearts for 10 years without letting go. Because we say that if a million raindrops fall, not one of them falls in the wrong place, the person we meet is definitely not a coincidence. The next morning, Su Qin received news that the apartment next door was on fire. The fire was extremely large and many people were injured. As a doctor, hearing this news, Su Qin immediately knew what to do to. Song Yen and his teammates had arrived. In the middle of the road, there was a luxury car blocking the path of the fire truck. While the fire was burning, Song Yen immediately ordered everyone to leave the car and go to another place. If anything happens, he himself will take responsibility. Everyone worked together to finally clear the fire escape route. He rushed to the scene to rescue and evacuate the crowd, but there was one person rushing in. The two looked at each other, seeming to have recognized each other. In the silence, Su Qin said, "I'm a doctor." After listening, Song Yen immediately let go of her hand and told her to go behind him. Looking at his peaceful shoulders and muscular back, she suddenly felt warm and extremely reassured. When they arrived at the scene, they encountered countless difficulties. Because this dormitory was old, there were many dangers. The more people there, the greater the danger. After Song Yen observed and analyzed, he received approval from the commander. He led the people he chose into the ward. Everyone entered each room in turn, but accidentally there was an incident. The commander anxiously called Song Yen. He reassured that everything was still okay. Su Qin also breathed a sigh of relief. The situation was extremely dangerous, so the commander ordered everyone to withdraw. Song Yen heard the order and was about to leave when he heard a child screaming for help. He was not in danger but rushed into the room to save people. When he found the baby and hugged it away, an unexpected incident happened. A loud explosion rang out, and the radio could no longer hear Song Yan's voice. Everyone hurriedly tried to go inside when, in the smoke screen, a figure holding a baby rushed straight out into the black smoke screen. Seeing that Song Yen was still fine, her aching heart was also relieved. She quickly took medical equipment to find Song Yen and kindly asked him if he was injured anywhere. Song Yen sat at the faucet, relaxing, appearing cold and wandering around. The angry commander went to find Song Yen because working alone was too dangerous. At that moment, an evil boy's voice shouted from behind, asking who was going to turn me on. Song Yen immediately came out to correct him and then explained his mind-boggling technique to the other guy so he wouldn't be rambling. Looking at this image, Su Qin smiled, remembering the resilient boy of those years. Su Qin watched his back as he slowly left. Although Song Yen still had a difficult expression on his face, the commander saw that his face had changed somewhat since meeting that doctor. "Do you know that doctor?" He didn't answer because in the past 10 years, not a day had gone by in his heart when the image of that girl was less. Returning to the fire station, the two played chess. The commander still had questions, but Song Yan remained silent. Su Qin on this side slowly opened the suitcase. Inside were all items related to Song Yan. Everything from his high school days to his uniform with his name on it, all of which she kept carefully. The next day, Su Qin wandered through the familiar alley, but now it was unusual. She looked up at the wall. Touching it reminded her of the happy time she spent with Song Yan. Unconsciously, she walked to Song Yan's door without realizing it. She knocked on the door and Song Yan's mother also came out, but she was not happy to see her and immediately wanted to close the door and let the dog go. She immediately slammed the door to scare the girl who made her son suffer. Su Qin also knew it was all her fault, so she quietly turned around and walked away. A few days later, Su Qin received a case of mild prevention. The burns were not serious, but she was skeptical about Su Qin's skills. At this time, a firefighter with serious injuries came in, and she quickly took the guy for treatment. When the other patient's husband stopped her and wanted to cause trouble, Song Yan appeared just in time to protect her. When she finished treating the wound, she turned her eyes continuously but couldn't see it. When her teammates informed her that he was standing outside the door, she quickly ran out to talk to him. She asked about his life. He didn't bother to answer. Then she told her that her life wasn't very good. Then he even more unintentionally just said yes. She hesitantly used all her strength to invite him out for coffee. Song Yan didn't leave, but instead let out bitter words that crushed the beauty's heart. At night, when it started to rain, Su Qin drove into the tunnel alone. The dark season obscured all visibility, and due to the high water level, her car suddenly stalled. No matter how hard she tried to restart the car, she couldn't open it. She felt like she was having trouble dipping rice, packing important things to leave, and there was bad luck in the mix. A car behind her accidentally collided with her car, causing her car door to no longer open. Su Qin quickly called the fire department for help. At this time, the water in the car was up to her feet, and the car had lost power. Su Qin was immediately scared. When he was panicking, she accidentally touched his phone, causing it to fall into the water. She groped for her phone but couldn't find it. Feeling like she was losing control, she could only knock on the glass door to call for help. The rainwater was about to drown her when far away, a morning dawned in the dark basement. Two firefighters are braving the rain and crossing river to get here. And that guy was none other than Song Yan. He couldn't break the car window. Then he used all his strength to lift the front of the car and slowly move through the water. He broke the car window. He discovered Su Qin inside the car. He hurriedly pulled her out. Holding her in his arms, the hero saved the beauty. Su Qin also took this opportunity to hug him tightly. Looking at each other, Song Yan immediately asked her to let go, but she let go of her shame and hugged him tighter. He angrily put her down, scolding her for going out into the street like this. He said some harsh words, but in his heart he was very afraid that she was in danger. Even though there was an arrow of hatred in his heart, he still graciously gave her the protective suit. Song Yan said that it was so dangerous that even if a dog was stuck in there, he would still go in and save it. Su Qin's heart sobbed again. She quickly ran away in the cool rain. Holding on to Song Yan's affairs in her heart makes Su Qin unhappy. Seeing this, her brother at home immediately invited her to go to the bar. Heard that there would be a fire prevention team coming in to check, then Su Qin's eyes flashed again. Immediately made an excuse to make a phone call. That's people when fall in love. Unfortunately, when she came to see it, the fire inspection was done by the management team. As for the fire and rescue station, it is not in charge of this area, and I don't know if there is a word about burning hearts burning with love. While in the restroom, she recalled memories with Song Yan. So she excused herself and left, going straight to Song Yan's fire station to say she wanted to meet him. But when the staff on duty outside called in, they reported that Song Yan was currently on duty and had not returned yet. She quickly left. Not far away, Song Yan, who was walking the dog, also looked out with amorous eyes. The commander came over to look and said, if you want to see her, go and see her. Song Yan listened but pretended to be cheap and leaned down to play with him for his love. Su Qin saw that he had no intention of seeing her, so she turned around and left. When she arrived, she went to the old road to Song Yan's house. Coincidentally, he also had work to do and walked out. Then she immediately gave the protective suit to Song Yan. Then she thanked him for saving her the night before. Song Yan immediately kicked him and said he wanted to repay him with his own body. Hearing this, Su Qin was a bit shy, but her body moved automatically. Looking at Song Yan's actions, he couldn't help but laugh. If everyone who gets saved wants to repay a handsome guy like this with their own body, then perhaps it's a bit of a bargain. How do you think that 10 years have passed and I still hold you in my heart? Su Qin heard these words. Su Qin was very sad but also slept because she was the one who broke love with him first. She shed tears and wanted to make up. Song Yen coldly replied that he had long forgotten her. A serious traffic accident occurred on the outer ring road, causing these two unfathomably predestined people to meet again. In a critical situation, the wheels slipped down. Song Yen immediately used his body to cover Su Qin. The steel plate cut a large wound in his back. He did not show his wound but continued his mission to save the victims inside. After a long effort, everyone successfully rescued the victim inside the car. He had a big wound. Su Qin immediately asked him to go to the hospital to treat the wound. Song Yen didn't pay any attention to her. Only when the commander gave him enough advice did he listen and board the ambulance to go to the hospital. As soon as he arrived at the clinic, being alone with Su Qin made him shy and wanted to immediately change to another doctor. Su Qin said that all the other doctors were busy today and she was the only one left. He blamed me and said he thought I wasn't chosen. Hearing that sentence, he was speechless and stopped objecting. Besides obediently obeying her words and taking off his shirt, his body was now filled with large and small wounds. Su Qin watched with tears in her eyes. She applied disinfectant and used glue to pick up the debris on the wound. Su Qin stitched Song Yan's wound without anesthesia. He endured the pain while Su Qin stitched the wound. She asked him to come see her in 2 days to change the medicine. The wound outside can heal, but the wound in his heart from the past 10 years has not yet healed. Yan Jia rushed over to inquire and kindly helped Song Yan put on his shirt. Looking at the image of another woman being kind to her first love, her expression was surprised. Her heart couldn't understand her. After Yan Jia left with concern, Su Qin dared to open his mouth and ask if that was his girlfriend. Song Yan neither admitted nor denied. She told him he had a girlfriend, so when she refused, she just told him he had a girlfriend, so why bother saying irrelevant things? After hearing this, Song Yan felt very ridiculous and could not understand women. It was clear from the beginning that she left him. Now by some miracle it turned out that he was the one in the wrong. Su Qin knew that he still resented her, so she spoke up to explain, and when she heard his words of love, she said that if time could come back, she would still make the same choice. When I calmed down, Song Yan said it was okay to have injuries from my youth, but if I got hurt again at this age, it would take my old life. After speaking, he coldly left, leaving Su Qin alone to cry, his heart broken. Yan Jia saw Song Yan's sad expression outside and proactively asked if Su Qin was his ex-girlfriend. Seeing that he still didn't answer her, she decided to muster up the courage to confess her love to him. He didn't say anything and quietly left, but the more the love demon ran away, the more it clung to him, so no one should tire himself out looking for love. Su Qin was very drunk on her day off when there was a knock on the door outside. The two people looked at each other in an ambiguous atmosphere when the apartment manager interrupted the conversation. Room 201 had a child crawling out onto the balcony, then Song Yan's fire department rescued the boy safely. Looking at Su Qin's concentration while working, Song Yan felt something very difficult to describe. When Song Yan's teammates left, she took the opportunity to ask for his personal information from her teammates. When everyone left, he stayed to help Su Qin clean up. First love, handsome, talented, top-notch thinking being face to face makes Su Qin's heart beat a little. In exchange for the love she cruelly left, she now decides to take the initiative in flirting with him. Song Yan, do you have Sunday off? He sounded like he didn't bother to answer but turned around and left. That evening, Su Qin suddenly received a friend request from Song Yan. So while she was sleeping, she quickly turned on the light and stalked his personal page without getting bored. Just looking at my profile makes me laugh out loud like this, it's a mistake. The next day, Su Qin went to the fire station to find Song Yan. She wanted to invite him out for a nice meal. Seeing her beg and plead hard, he finally resigned and agreed. Even though his face was still cold as ice, in his heart, perhaps the whole flower garden had begun to bud. As soon as he agreed to go out to eat with the girl, he walked in and discovered his friends were stalking, making him feel embarrassed and take the opportunity to yell at his teammates. Su Qin outside looked at this scene and also laughed at the senselessness of the men. On the appointment day, Su Qin woke up early to prepare and thoughtfully asked her best friend to come over and do her makeup. Song Yan here was no different as he woke up early to prepare his clothes and asked the commander to fix his Ivy League hair. Su Qin finished preparing all his things and immediately prepared an umbrella to stand in the rain waiting for him. Waiting and waiting, while being disappointed, a handsome guy came out from the taxi, Song Yan. Song Yan saw Su Qin wearing makeup like this for the first time, so her heart also shook a little. Just like that, the two of them walked in the rain with two umbrellas, the one in front and the other behind looked at each other indifferently. The two returned to the small restaurant that they often went to 10 years ago. Song Yan looked at this image and remembered that day as if it had just happened yesterday. She ordered all of Song Yan's favorite dishes. 10 years have passed and the old restaurant still tastes the same. But for Song Yan, he doesn't think the chicken is delicious at all, so he takes off his gloves. Su Qin stroked her hair as if it radiated a brilliant aura that made him unable to take his eyes off it. But in order to hide his feelings, he pretended to be upset and asked Su Qin to eat quickly and then go home. She immediately turned 360 degrees, from a water beauty to a hungry girl. Song Yen was angry and asked his cousin what was wrong. Then the girl who beat me said that she was tricked by someone when she worked part-time. Then the police officer came over and said that as a university student, selling fake goods with high school qualifications is illegal. Song Yen immediately asked who sold the goods to her, but her sister stubbornly refused to cooperate with the police. He angrily told the police to talk to the school. Su Qin stepped forward to pull Zhai Miao back. Knowing that after this arrest, she still did not give up her plan, but wanted to continue trading. After Su Qin brainstormed that the technique had little benefit but much harm, Zhai Miao also realized and gave the contact information of the contact to the police. The contact had disappeared, but the girl had to return the money to the buyer and was fined 3 times the amount of products sold. On the other hand, the commander is on duty at a burning store in place of Song Yen, who is on leave today. Accidentally, while performing a mission, a gas tank exploded. When Song Yen received the news, he immediately rushed to the hospital. As soon as he arrived, he received news that his hand was broken. He adjusted his emotions and slowly walked in to visit. Looking at the commander's half-burned face, he couldn't help but burst into tears like a child. He was awakened by Song Yan's crying. He consoled himself that he was okay, rested and would be fine. He couldn't control his emotions, so he asked permission to step out to calm down. As soon as he got out and stood in a corner, he hit himself, remembering the little things his commander taught him. If the person working today were you would advise the commander to change jobs. Then this probably wouldn't have happened. He entered the hospital room again. The commander did not complain at all but also asked about the girl he had just saved. After being told by Song Yen that the girl had been successfully rescued, the commander breathed a sigh of relief. Song Yen still secretly blamed himself. The commander said he was the best firefighter, the best firefighting instructor. I led the best firefighters. Hearing these words, his stone heart was now very soft. He cried like a child. Not long after, the commander recovered and was discharged from the hospital, but his arm and half of his handsome face would never recover. Touch held a handover ceremony for him, the red star flag fluttered, his eyes filled with tears as the forest watched. Telling a bit about Su Qin's past, when he was young, his parents lost everything in the robbery case. Su Qin was adopted by a wealthy family, but the family's wife was a domineering mother who liked to control her children. She strictly educates everyone from trying to sit down to eat to making friends on social networks to be considered by her. 10 years ago, because she banned her relationship with Song Yen, she sent her to study abroad. Just like that, she tried her best to become an excellent surgeon, mainly to impress her adoptive mother to give her something called freedom. She heard her adopted daughter sobbing and immediately knew that she still hadn't gotten over her love affair with Song Yen, so she immediately took out pictures of the boys she considered her matches. Because she had a life in a cage where everything had to be obeyed by her adoptive mother, she obeyed and drove by eye. While preparing to follow the so-called fates arrangement, she suddenly received a money transfer from Song Yen on her phone. Her heart seemed to light up in the dark basement, so she immediately said that because the hospital had an emergency department, she had to leave quickly. Getting out of the car, she quickly sent a text message asking Song Yen to invite her to eat. Unexpectedly, he stopped for a second and pulled away. Back home, Su Qin talked to her mother again and told her that she had someone she liked. She immediately knew who it was and didn't say anything. Her mother said she did not want to be as heartless as 10 years ago. Su Qin understood her adoptive mother's attitude, then she went to find her adoptive father to receive sympathy. Although he is very comfortable and wants her to love freely, he does not want the family to have discord because of this. The parents' attitude made me see Su Qin as a young bird locked in a cage and always looking for a way to freedom. Although she couldn't bear it, she once again accepted her cruel fate. Love at first sight, because of that look, 10 years have passed and he has never stopped being like her. But he also knows that she cannot let go of the pressure from her family, so no matter what, he still respects her decision. While eating, there was a cry for help in the restaurant. Song Yen rushed into the back kitchen, extinguished the fire on the chef and then saved a beautiful lady. His cool boy looks made the girl's heart beat like spring had come. She was Su Qin's close friend. When she learned that her friend knew him, she immediately asked for his personal info. She thought that with Song Yan's personality, he wouldn't care. The next day, when they gathered to talk, she knew that Song Yen had agreed to her friend's invitation. Suddenly, in Su Qin's heart, she felt uncomfortable and used wine to express her sadness. She went straight to Song Yan's house, blaming him for trying hard with this relationship over the past few years. Su Qin knew that she was slow to communicate, so she chose to become a doctor, hoping to rely on her good skills to be able to take care of herself, can live her life freely. Through those efforts, Song Yen has also gone through a lot of bitterness and sweetness to get to where she is today. But he couldn't express his feelings, because Su Qin's adoptive mother was a deep abyss that no matter how hard he tried to bridge it, he still couldn't cross it. Su Qin cried bitterly, then determined to withdraw her words and end this cruel love affair. Wanted to chase after her but was stopped by his brother. Over the years he has worked hard, but now he is no longer a teenager with a burning heart pursuing the love of his life like that year. Now he can't selfishly tell Su Qin to abandon his family to come to him. He thought it was cool to do so, but when he sat alone and thought about it, his mind was filled with images of Su Qin. If both of them still love each other deeply, he decides to be the one to open the frozen heart again for 10 years. He put on nice clothes and took the initiative to make up. Song Yan's foster uncle from childhood looked at his face and understood his feelings like the back of his hand. He knew that no matter how many times he was hurt in love, he still couldn't give up on Su Qin. He loved him and endured being beaten again and again but still respected his decision. When he received the phone call from Song Yan, Su Qin hurried home from his adoptive mother's house. Worried that if she fasted she would have a stomach ache, Song Yan came and cooked a pot of white porridge for her. People say first love is the deepest love. After 10 years of separation and now cooking together makes both of them very embarrassed. But they were very happy. Song Yan drank a glass of water then mustered up the courage with a very prestigious face to ask Su Qin if he wanted to reconnect with his old love. He promised to understand her and her worries. He couldn't stand a scene where she was flirting with her anymore. Faced with Song Yan's sincerity, Su Qin could only remain silent, not knowing how to respond. Their relationship is like boiling water. Once the water is boiled, there is no turning back. Su Qin lost her parents when she was young and has always felt insecure, afraid that her adoptive mother would abandon her. She knows she is both cowardly and selfish, and fundamentally unworthy of Song Yan's love. Meng Yanchen waited for Su Qin because he was afraid she would leave him. Getting in the car, he reminded her not to disobey her mother's wishes or else what happened 10 years ago would repeat itself. Su Qin felt like a pet, tamed by her adoptive mother over and over again to the point where she lost her ability to survive. To end this love affair, Su Qin decided to give up. When Song Yan learned that her best friend had ordered food for the fire department, he immediately became angry, and strictly forbade his team members from eating these foods. Then he went out to call Yang Xijia to stop bothering him. I really think you're very good and want to get to know him a bit. You are Su Qin's friend, right? She is my first love. Yang Xijia heard that and immediately bought wine to ask his best friend. There are so many chaos in Su Qin's heart that she can only apologize to her friend. Yang Xijia feels that if Su Qin still has feelings, then love again. Loving one day is one day, because life is inherently very short. Just like that, Yang Xijia encouraged her friend to reunite. The next day, when she got home from work, Su Qin saw her adoptive mother at her apartment. On the surface, it was to bring rice to visit his daughter, but in reality want to check to see if his daughter was romantically involved with Song Yan. Su Qin immediately saw through his mother's intentions. She tried her best to confess that she wanted to do what she wanted for once. The adoptive mother felt disgusted with Song Yan from the bottom of her heart, even threatened that if they reunited, she would take Su Qin away just like 10 years ago. Then she immediately sang the song of motherly love, sacrifice, and money to raise her, everything. Hearing her mother's lament, Su Qin couldn't understand herself, and once again she chose intimacy instead of pursuing the love of her life. When Song Yan's family was young, it was very tragic. It was like nothing. My father was unemployed, my mother was discouraged by her desire for glory and wealth and left home to follow a rich man. He cried and chased after her, but his strength had limited. It's true that water is not as cold as someone who doesn't love him anymore. From then on, his father became careless, drinking so much that he was drunk. Song Yan stays at home and takes care of all the dishes, even though it's not very organized, but for him, he only needs his father's children to have a family. But on a snowy day, Song Yan woke up and found that his father had disappeared. He quickly went out to look for him and discovered that his father had frozen solid before the cold, snowy day. Maybe that was the day his heart was broken. After that, he was adopted by the boy because he missed his mother, so he looked for and saw his mother now playing and being considerate with another boy. God at that time was probably very unfair to him. But in high school, God sent Su Qin to him. With just the first look, he fell in love with her. He had tried his best to improve and be worthy of the person he loves. Su Qin also has feelings for him. He also took Su Qin to see the mother who had abandoned him, and saw her planning to help her rich husband. Makes him feel sorry for himself because his father never had that expectation. He wiped away his tears and decided not to look for his mother anymore. Among thousands and thousands of reasons, people who want to stay will find a way to stay, but if they don't want to hold on, it's a waste. Su Qin didn't know how to comfort him, then she took out a lot of money from her pocket. Because her mother raised her, that money can buy a lot of joy. Back to reality, today the fire brigade will go to deal with a large beehive. A new member who claimed to be brave and had cheap leather had a window fall on him. Song Yan rushed to save him and was stung by a bee right on his butt, so he was taken to the emergency room by his teammates, and the person who treated the wound was his first love. Song Yan felt very embarrassed. The nurses also knew what they meant and quickly left to give the two of them some privacy. He was shy and needed a male doctor to handle him, but Su Qin said he was just a patient with nothing to do with gender. Just as the treatment was finished, a nurse opened the door and told Su Qin to go in and perform surgery on the poisoned patient. Song Yan was put in a position where he could only dig and crawl down. As soon as he left the hospital, he saw Meng Yanchen visiting Su Qin. He thought Song Yan had come to bother his sister, so he said harsh words. He even went back to yell at his sister and hoped that she would give up thinking about reuniting. Su Qin's face was as cold as ice. She even had the thought that she would abandon this family because of Song Yan, causing Meng Yanchen to shout loudly. Song Yan received news that he needed to rescue a group of students trapped on the mountain. The fire brigade immediately went to the scene of the accident. Everyone everywhere was in chaos due to excitement. Song Yan asked the natives about the terrain of this dangerous mountain. He revealed that this student secretly avoided the security guard and climbed up, and there were cliffs so dangerous that even native people rarely went there. Song Yan quickly confirmed the location the local people said. Unable to delay, he brought members of the entire team to the rescue. After some time crossing streams and rocks, the team found a group of trapped students. Among them was a female student who fell and broke her leg, so to help her, Song Yan called Su Qin to ask about first aid. Based on Su Qin's words, the team members quickly treated the wound. Seeing that the temperature was getting lower and lower, the whole team and a group of students rushed down the mountain. Accidentally, Deepening slipped and fell down the cliff. Although his life was not in danger, one of his legs was crushed by a rock. Song Yan quickly went down to help. Even though he tried his best, he still couldn't move the big rock. The female student up there kept screaming that her wound was in pain. Song Yan immediately asked everyone to take her and the group of students down the mountain first, then took the tool and pushed the rock out. He stayed behind to hug Deepening to fix the kettle. Su Qin felt uneasy, so she took the initiative to send him a message. Sei did not see him reply for a long time. She called him but there was still no one answering the phone. Because at this time, Song Yan was holding his teammate tightly, the two of them warned each other to wait for help. It was not easy for the fire brigade to bring the entire group of students to the foot of the mountain, but as soon as they met their families, they immediately brushed it off without saying a word of thanks. Before the firefighters could catch their breath, they had to take their tools and go back up the mountain to rescue the rescue teams. Song Yan and Deepening were almost at their wits' end due to the cold and shivering when team members came to their rescue. When Song Yan returned home, he was exhausted. Xiao Jie gave him bread to eat to relieve his hunger. Xiao Jie was just brought into the team to be a coach, and he expressed frustration at the attitude of the people here. Song Yan said he had encountered many different types of people. But as long as you save a life every time, everything you spend is worth it. Su Qin was worried and teasing when she received a news of safety from Song Yan, making her feel relieved. Xiao Jie discussed rescuing the female student last night. He saw a fatal problem in the rescue. That is, they still did not have a medical team, causing some serious injuries that could not be treated immediately. And to minimize the casualty rate, Xiao Jie proposed to his superiors to cooperate with the hospital. Send a team of medical staff to the fire station to conduct training. Unexpectedly, the captain over there was Su Qin. So both teams started practicing and the model was Song Yan. She kept a calm face and showed everyone how to stop bleeding when injured. The physical contact made his heart beat rapidly. Faced with Su Qin's request, he showed a cold face and agreed, then pretended to calmly take off his shirt. He tensed up his body very well, but at the slightest physical touch, he couldn't bear to pick up his shirt and quickly left. Both are captains, so meeting each other every day is inevitable. Being assigned to the same group, he still wanted to be separate from her. Su Qin kept feeling uncomfortable but still tried to complete the training tasks. Song Yan's eyes on this side kept closely observing her. After training ended, the two met in the gym. Su Qin asked why he always cold with her. Song Yan replied that he was afraid that his teammates would talk too much and neglect practice. This answer made Su Qin even more bitter, upset, and said he would keep a distance from him in the future. When Song Yan heard it, he was a little confused and went up to press the button to stop the treadmill. Su Qin coldly turned around and walked away when he accidentally got a rat on his foot. He quickly helped her sit down. Even though his mouth was a bit rude, when he massaged her feet, seeing her in pain made him feel pain. During the massage, members eagerly stood next to me. The two immediately felt embarrassed. Song Yan then quickly left. The next day and at midnight, a bus lost its brakes and crashed down the mountainside. The medical team and fire brigade quickly set out. Everyone in the car was safely rescued. Only one man remained with complicated injuries so he could not be taken out. Su Qin saw this and immediately went up to treat the wound. He agreed, but for her safety, he decided to go with her. Thanks to Su Qin's high skills, the man's injuries were quickly treated and taken to the emergency room. Having completed the task, the firefighters asked Su Qin to take a picture for them. The group looked at the sunrise before their eyes, and Song Yan turned his head to look towards Su Qin. He feels that this earth is so round, so lucky that after 10 years he can still meet the person in his heart again. Morning and night together, our feelings grew closer and closer. But as a girl, she always feels overthinking when saw the guy she loved being intimate with another girl. Congratulations on having fans, and even though I'm jealous. Song Yan understood Su Qin's personality all too well, but time after time he did not close the deal, causing both of them to be tormented. I've taken 99 steps, now you only have to take one more step so we can be together. Xiao Jia saw that the two of them liked each other. He was the one who had gone on a blind date with Su Qin. He also did not support her family's forced marriage, but supported the two people's love for each other. Song Yan got in the car and looked in the rearview mirror, and he was jealous. No matter what, you have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Xiao Jia had suggested to Song Yan many times that Su Qin really liked Song Yan. Song Yan found it very annoying and turned around to leave, but Xiao Jia followed behind and made fun of all sorts of things. He also said that Su Qin was his ideal model, thinking that Song Yan would just leave, but he suddenly became angry and shouted at Su Qin that it was impossible for him to like him. Xiao Jia immediately smiled and joked back to see if he was in love. Seeing that he was caught, he immediately kicked him in the butt. Su Qin's adoptive mother here heard the news and called the deputy director to request that the rescue team be disbanded. The next day, she made an appointment to meet Song Yan alone. Su Qin's mother was also the reason why his father became unemployed, leading to his mother abandoning him. Afterwards, his father went out and died in the cold. Later, when she learned that Song Yan and her adopted son were in love, she not only wanted to send her son to study abroad but also wanted to disrupt Song Yan's future path. Song Yan's uncle once had to abandon his shame and self-respect and kneel before her to beg for Song Yan's forgiveness, but she still turned away and was suspicious. Yet, listening to him tell her story, she just smiled triumphantly. He was no longer an enthusiastic teenager, so he calmly smiled back. She firmly asked him not to bother Su Qin anymore, and then brought up the story of Song Yan's mother's love of retirement, not knowing anything and trampling on his self-esteem. She highly appreciated his personality, but to her, she only saw him as a blade of grass. How could he reach the clouds? Song Yan returned to the fire station and also heard from Xiao Jia that the hospital had received a complaint against the doctor's family for not allowing them to stay at the fire station. When Song Yan heard the news, he immediately knew who was behind it. He felt the request was reasonable because the doctor was not a firefighter. Each person has a life, each person does their own thing. Xiao Jia also guessed that Su Qin's adoptive mother called to complain. Because the group of medical staff was about to leave the fire station, before leaving, they wanted to try out the sprinkler hose. Su Qin took a photo of the whole team. A colleague accidentally sprayed water on her, making her completely wet. However, she still remained very cheerful. Then she went into the bathroom alone. Song Yan followed her and prepared a clean set of clothes for her, and also helped her dry her wet clothes. Seeing her in disarray, he went to dry her hair. He continued to gently comb her hair. His considerate image reminded her of the past, the two of them sheltering from the rain together. They are loveless and carefree, with only the person they love in their hearts. During the years of separation, it was as if instead of holding a broken umbrella, they were soaking in the rain themselves. Because she still doesn't fully understand him, she wants to fill in the missing pieces. She asked him about the events of the past few years, but he brushed it off. The encounter with Su Qin's foster mother left him completely despairing. He doesn't want to keep Su Qin in the middle because if there is no possibility of coming together, he will choose to be the one to leave. Years ago, he was a special soldier guarding the border. Even if there is a rain of bullets or a strong enemy, he is not afraid, but only his first love makes him keep it in his heart forever. During a mission, he was unfortunately hit by a bullet, but thanks to the lighter given to him by his first love, he saved his life. His superiors came to visit and told him that if it weren't for that lighter, the bullet would have lodged directly in his artery. Su Qin always had to listen to her adoptive mother's orders to go on blind dates with boys she considered suitable matches. She went out to meet him and then quickly said goodbye and left. Song Yan's mind was always filled with her image. Looking at the photo in the phone book, he didn't understand why he couldn't give up on her. My head was thinking but my hand was pressing. The result was to immediately call Su Qin. Hearing her voice on the other end of the line, he could only make excuses that Xiao Jia pressed the wrong button. Hearing the little lie, Su Qin immediately knew. Both had many things to say but no one dared to say anything, so they had to say goodbye. But none of the millions of raindrops are accidental. The hospital will soon have an improvisational fire prevention drill. Coincidentally, Su Qin was assigned the role of a doctor waiting. She was very happy about that. As requested, she went to the medicine room to wait for Song Yan. But when he arrived, she criticized him for being late. If there had really been a fire, she would probably have become a corpse. Neither of them gave in to the other, and at that moment an earthquake occurred. Song Yan immediately walked over and hugged her, unconsciously protecting Su Qin with his body. When the shaking stopped, he let go of Su Qin and went to gather with his teammates to prepare for the real rescue. As he left, he observed that Su Qin's room had many broken pieces of medicine bottles, so he carried her out before leaving with peace of mind. The next day, the hospital and firefighters coordinated fire prevention exercises again. Everyone cooperated very enthusiastically. Two of them sat looking at the night sky. She gave him the lighter that she had given him before. then shyly ran away and turned back, promising to see each other when she got back. Song Yen looked and happily agreed, then his eyes kept looking at Su Qin's retreating back. He looked at the lighter Su Qin gave him and felt very reassured. At a gemstone jewelry store, a woman accidentally tried on a ring and it got stuck on her finger and couldn't get it out. The husband kept scolding her, making her cry. She kept trying to pull the ring out, causing her finger to swell. The firefighter suggested cutting off the ring because if left, it could lead to gangrene of the finger. Upon hearing that, the husband blamed the female employee. When his son stopped him, he turned around and vented his anger on his wife. The son was afraid that if he cut the ring, he would have to pay for it. The husband heard that and immediately scolded his wife in the face. The fire team decided to ask the son's opinion whether he wanted to cut or not. He was worried about wasting money, so he asked them if there was any other way. Yang Qi saw that and immediately sat down to comfort the mother. He advised her not to feel guilty or blame herself because he believed that what she had exchanged for her family was more than hundreds of rings. Hearing that, the son immediately understood and told his brothers to help him cut it. In just 1 minute and 30 seconds, the fire team finished cutting her hand so it wouldn't hurt anymore. When they were about to pay and leave, Yang Qi held the cut ring and asked if it could be made into some jewelry for them. The employee immediately agreed and would report it to the company. She also left a like for the soldier's spirit. Life is inherently unfair, so the hair is never straight. When a righteous and kind person like Yang Qi has to suffer the pain of losing a loved one, Song Yen saw something strange, so she immediately went to ask him. He just didn't care and just wanted to find a way to save more people. Song Yen immediately saw that he was too tired, so he advised him to stop because health is also very important. Tell him to take a rest. Yang Qi immediately shed tears, unable to suppress the pain. Song Yen asked his mother's name and sent someone to find her. That night Yang Qi called his family but no one answered the phone. That's how bitter it is. You could have saved many people, but now your family members are in danger. You're not being able to go to the rescue. That is the suffering of great firefighters. Teammates went to comfort Yang Qi. Song Yen also came and said the commander had reported to everyone and would have the results soon. Then tell him to eat noodles because there are many other people who need their help. The two people's relationship has progressed dramatically. Previously, downstairs Su Qin asked Song Yen, "Do you like me that much?" Song Yen immediately replied that it was definitely like that. "Even though our personalities and interests have changed over the years, I still like you very much. Or should we just ignore each other and stop loving each other?" Su Qin hesitated for a moment and Song Yen immediately left. She shouted okay, then quickly rushed to hug him and told him to get married. Just like that, their first love after 10 years of separation became husband and wife in an instant. They live together and figure out when they will have children. Song Yen takes care of her from the basics, from how to escape when the car gets stuck. He kept rambling, and she was so infatuated with this love that she kept looking at him, but in her mind she couldn't remember anything. But she's also jealous, and when she's calm, she asks Song Yen if she's still working with Yen Jie. When Song Yen heard it, he knew that whatever would happen, so he asked her why she cared about his work. Su Qin said that he saw that the two were very close, so she showed a little concern. Song Yen immediately stopped talking and instead hugged Su Qin. She's grown up and knows how to be jealous and act like a babe. She kicked his leg, making Song Yen find all those actions very adorable. He even whispered in her ear some sweet honey. This sweet image is something they also went through many storms to achieve. A few days ago during the earthquake, Song Yen was crushed to the ground unconscious and facing death. Su Qin above looked unwilling and wanted to risk his life to save him. Xiao Jia said she couldn't risk her life, but he was my life, let her go down there. Everyone was touched by her feelings, so they supported her to go save Song Yen. His injuries were very severe, reinforced concrete pressed on him and pierced his entire abdomen. While checking on him, the radio rang from above that someone was seriously bad and needed immediate surgery. At this point, she felt very confused. She suddenly understood the meaning of medicine, burst into tears, then gently kissed his forehead and said she would go in for surgery right away. Everyone was moved to see Su Qin's greatness and magnanimity. Teammates also quickly went down to rescue Song Yen from the rubble. Xiao Jia looked at the image of Song Yen being seriously injured and burst into tears. He shouted loudly for everyone to be gentle and not touch the wound. Song Yen was taken to the emergency room, and the director personally operated on him. After a few hours, the steel plate stuck to his body was pulled out. Su Qin was tired of waiting outside, but there was a patient in need of emergency treatment. She immediately went to accept the task without hesitation. The next morning, she rushed off to find Song Yen. On the way, she was shocked when she saw staff carrying a body out of the emergency room. Not believing his eyes, Su Qin stood still. Then she slowly walked forward and opened the door until tears welled up in her eyes. She was relieved that the person in front of her was not Song Yen. The former military man who had just met Su Qin jokingly called her sister-in-law and introduced himself as Lu Jia. Song Yen held his hand back and said she was not his sister-in-law. Then she went out to let the two men talk. As soon as I left, Lu Jia asked unsuccessfully. The two immediately laughed senselessly. We hadn't seen each other for so many years, but when we saw each other again, we met again on a hospital bed in the middle of the epicenter. I've been looking for you but can't find you. Are you trying to hide from us? Lu Jia said he felt sorry for Song Yen like that, but for Song Yen, everything was over. Lu Jia understood better than anyone that Song Yen was shot at that time so as not to implicate his teammates. Looking at his military rank, Song Yen also put aside his defense. This military uniform has always been Song Yan's dream. Mr. Lu Jia wrote it down and left it hoping he wouldn't disappear again in the future. Song Yen nodded and promised to contact him regularly. Later, Xiao Jia brought his teammates to visit Song Yen, no matter what happened, and still laughed senselessly. They complimented Song Yen after surgery and looked like a great design that women love. One member took out his phone to show Song Yen a baby born during the earthquake. The baby's father was a soldier. Although the baby's mother did not survive, she still kept the baby. He told him about Su Qin not caring about her life but rushing down to save him. Song Yen was very emotional when he heard that. Jun Ping immediately complained about half of it, then left him to go save someone else. So she hates you now. When everyone left, Yang Qi corrected himself and said that earlier everyone was only criticizing him. She was the first person to rush down to save him and said he was her life. Song Yen was very touched and promised to let Yang Qi officiate the wedding in the future. When Deepening visited Li Nan, she gave him a piece of candy and his face was full of love. Yang Qi also went to visit the person he likes, and she applied medicine for him. He just looked at people with a world full of roses. In the morning, Song Yen and Su Qin took the train, so that no one could touch the person he loved, so he left her in his arms. The ship shook so strongly that the person who touched her would have to be him, he would accept it. The two of them looked at each other. Then they went to see a movie, and after watching half of it, the occupational disease struck. He had to go to the emergency exit and ask the staff to open the lock to block it, then he could safely go up to watch a movie with his lover. The two looked at each other, closed their eyes and were about to kiss passionately, when laughter rang out from behind, making them both shyly look back at the screen. After watching the movie, both of them went to the supermarket. Song Yen took out the pork belly that Su Qin liked to eat the most, but she was the only one who now liked eating fatty meat. He wasn't surprised, but it was more convenient to say that. Now looking for each other's taste, Su Qin said he doesn't eat spicy food anymore. As for Song Yen, he can now eat spicy food. After 10 years, both of our tastes have changed, but our love for each other has never changed. Back home, Song Yen showed off her cooking skills. The two ate a light meal on a flickering candle, looking very romantic. After eating, Song Yen went to the kitchen and cleaned the dishes herself. Su Qin looked and wanted to keep Song Yen here a little longer. Seeing that it was already dark, Song Yen refused and told him to go home. As soon as Song Yen left, Su Qin chased him out. Feeling like he had lost track of him, he asked Su Qin from behind if he still liked him. She really liked it, but when she looked at him, she didn't say a word, but when he left, she responded that she liked him, then wiped and hugged him. Then he proactively said, "Let's get married today, right now." The two returned to the room together, burning a passionate fire that broke all limits. The two gave each other things that had been sealed for 10 years. After a long night of fighting together, Song Yen went down to cook for Su Qin to enjoy the early morning. The more a couple loves each other, the more sensitive they are, especially women who always ask very vague questions. During the elevator, Su Qin suddenly told Song Yen that Yen Jia liked him very much. As soon as he heard it, he knew she was jealous. After passing stage 1 to stage 2, she immediately asked him if he liked Yen Jia. He no longer speaks but uses actions instead of words. On this side, the other pair became a pair and Xiao Jia also began to speed up the phase. Yen Jia was giving a speech but he coughed and immediately said something but answered immediately saying he had no questions. Then, taking advantage of the break, Xiao Jia gave her a bottle of water and left a message reminding her to stay warm and drink warm water. Sometimes just being subtle like that is already a plus point in girls, young FA. On the other hand, Su Qin is the MVP. During the recent earthquake, he was called to the podium to speak. But she did not praise herself, but instead criticized her small wrongdoings, turning it into a self-criticism ceremony. The staff below were in an uproar, so the deputy director interrupted for fear that speaking out would become a criticism. At the end of the ceremony, the homeroom teacher gave her a medal. She had received recognition from him. She was happy like a child. This is an extremely meaningful medal. It was given by the Minister of Health when the homeroom leader went to Africa to provide relief. After finishing work, Su Qin took out his phone to look but didn't see any messages. She is quite angry. When she got home, he still hadn't texted me anything. Contacting his blog makes me even more bitter. She decided to ask Song Yen if they were lovers, but kept her integrity and asked him where he was. Song Yen immediately replied asking if she was missing him. Su Qin took the opportunity to text the wrong person, so he immediately replied that he'll be there in 10 minutes. She smiled, her heart blossomed, she changed into beautiful clothes and went down to welcome Song Yen. The two fell in love, and she and Song Yen hid from their family and lived together for a month. Today Su Qin mustered up the courage to tell her parents that she has a boyfriend for a month. Her mother didn't know who she was, so she told her to break up. She replied that she had liked that person for 10 years and that was Song Yen. Her mother became even angrier after hearing this and firmly said that neither she nor her father agreed. This made her father unhappy, and the least talkative person in the family objected strongly because he thought the circumstances of their separation were too great. That means that if we live together slowly, our values will be revealed, at which time many big and small problems will arise. Su Qin immediately replied that there was no such concern between him and him, only his parents' objections. She tried to explain her thoughts to her parents. The different views made her parents very angry. Her father also shared that if Song Yen came to her, it would be no different from sitting around and eating a golden bowl. Su Qin bitterly said that if she was with him and lost something, she would agree to give up everything she has now. Tears in her eyes, disappointment in her eyes. She left the car keys and house keys for her parents. She stood up and said she would repay them for taking care of them. From now on, she would still come back to visit every week. Even if she didn't want to, she would still come back. Her mother, furious, turned away and walked off. Her father wiped away tears and also left. Although her mother is a domineering person who likes to control her children, perhaps she understands that in this life, without money and fame, it is very difficult to live. They just wanted to give her a solid fulcrum so that in the future she wouldn't be forced to follow the cycle of money, food, and money. Su Qin left the house and went to the overpass alone, sadly sitting alone. Song Yen quickly ran over and the two hugged each other. She gave up everything and now only Song Yen is left. Song Yen painfully hugged the girl he loved. Taking the person he loves home, uncle, aunt and cousin warmly welcomed Su Qin. The meal was full of popular and simple dishes, but everyone was very happy and smiling. Su Qin feels that this is the true family warmth that she has never had. Song Yen readily said that from now on, Su Qin would move back to live with him. The young lady gave up her $1 trillion fortune to love the firefighter. Being taken by her adoptive mother to buy Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Su Qin was not happy at all. When she returned, she asked a young man to take her home that afternoon. When Su Qin was wondering whether to get in the car or not, from afar, Zhai Miao called her sister-in-law twice. Song Yen is also here to take her sister shopping. When Su Qin's mother heard that, she was angry and said she didn't have a boyfriend, but Su Qin objected and said she had a boyfriend. If you think about it, he's right in front of your eyes. She said that the two had a conflict and had broken up. Su Qin immediately did not hesitate to take 99 steps forward to let him take the remaining step. Song Yen was extremely happy, went up and held her hand, then nodded to ask her mother and said he would come home another day to ask. Wenning left in anger. Su Qin's noble love also made Zhai Miao admire him very much. Song Yen hugged her, promising that no matter what happened in the future, he would face her. They're very happy now. In the early morning, only the pink bicycle remained, but Su Qin happily enjoyed this moment. Arriving at the hospital, she heard that a patient's family was rioting outside. That person pointed out Dr. Yang's surgery that caused his wife's death. Hearing that, Su Qin immediately took a cup of coffee and went to the rooftop. Sure enough, Dr. Yang was sitting alone here lonely. Su Qin told about how he once knew an emergency department doctor abroad. He sets the rules for himself and the doctors in the department. If emergency treatment is not successful or you can't get off the operating table, then you can be sad for a minute. Not more than a second, because there are many other patients who need to be treated. After listening to Dr. Yang's explanation, the patient came in and his stomach was hemorrhaging. But the husband and mother-in-law argued because they had lost 10 million in hospital fees. Although the patient's older brother agreed, it was already too late. Although Dr. Yang didn't directly kill the person, the patient still died. Su Qin said, "We're not God." Those words seemed to soothe all the pain that Dr. Yang was holding in his heart. She cried and looked at Su Qin, then Su Qin also gave her the coffee he brought. But the patient's family members didn't want to let it go and they threatened to jump off the building if they didn't act out. Another hot news is that Xiao Jia and Song Yen are brothers with different mothers and fathers. The mother loved the pomp and luxury but abandoned her understanding child. But she also could not get love from her eldest child. She then gave birth to Xiao Jia, then gave the other child back to his first wife to raise. Although she has a personality that loves glory and wealth, she is fortunate that her two children were born to be brave and upright firefighters. While on duty, Xiao Jia fell unconscious from a high floor. Song Yen was the first to run to check. He hurriedly called out Xiao Jia's name. Finally, Xiao Jia woke up in a panic. That night, Xiao Jia was absent-minded, so Song Yen instead sat down and confided in him. Asked if he was afraid, Xiao Jie nodded. Song Yan said firefighters like us represent courage. If we are afraid, the city cannot be at peace. Just like that, Xiao Jie immediately reopened the video of Song Yan calling his name yesterday. He kept watching the video clip over and over again. He was so focused that he didn't notice anything around him. A few days later, they had another mission at a factory. Song Yan entered the place where the valve was blocked by a spring. Suddenly, a screw in a pipe was broken, causing steam to spray all over his body. He bumped his back into the heat, burning his protective suit. Not long after Song Yan went out, he fell unconscious on the ground. When taken to the emergency hospital, Su Qin saw this scene and was very worried because what he inhaled was toxic gas with a very strong toxin. Use a decompression tube, then use a heart valve to compress the chest. Her eyes remained wet until his heartbeat returned, then she calmed down. Experiencing this incident, Su Qin became even more worried about his life and career. She was very worried, not wanting things to always be like this. Deepening, 22 years old, just successfully confessed his love to this girl. Yet now he had to lose his life while on duty. When people secretly set off fireworks in the square, the fireworks shot up into the clouds in the sky, but one of them deviated and flew into a nearby building. Because it was near flammable things, it caught fire not long after. The fire brigade immediately arrived at the scene. The fire was much more terrible than at this time. Song Yan and everyone went to the rescue floor, and this building contained many dangerous fire and explosion risks. When they turned on the fire hose, there was no water. Unknowingly, there are many gas cylinders with a very high risk of fire and explosion, judging that the situation is very dangerous. Song Yan immediately ordered his teammates to leave. At the same time, there was an explosion. Song Yan checked all the members and found Deepening nowhere, and the radio could not be contacted. A teammate saw Deepeng's helmet fall to the ground. They saw that something was wrong, and when they looked, they found Deepeng lying nearby. Everyone pushed the rock on Deepeng's body away, turned him over and saw that his face had been half burned and deformed. Deepeng saved someone from dying. Everyone helped to get Deepeng into the ambulance. Song Yan told Yang Qi to go to the hospital, and he and his teammates would deal with this case. In his heart, he made up his mind that if anything happened to Deepeng, this place would have to pay the price. As soon as the mission was completed, Song Yan and everyone immediately ran to the hospital. Yang Qi sat outside in shock and burst into tears. Even though they knew this life was unfair, they had to believe one thing: Deepeng had passed away. Such a lively, intelligent, and honest boy died so early, making everyone's heart ache. Deepeng's girlfriend knew what happened and immediately ran over at night. Song Yan couldn't bear this shock, so he hurriedly left. Su Qin immediately felt uneasy and ran and held him back to ask if he was okay. Song Yan tightened his eyebrows. He said he probably wouldn't be able to keep his promise to her anymore. He was a little angry because his teammate had died. He needed to find out the truth, then angrily went alone to the burned building to look for clues. Su Qin's parents were still at home leisurely. Meng Yanchen argued with his mother, then went to a bar alone to relieve his pain. Xiao Qiu likes Meng Yanchen, and receives a call from a colleague saying that he is currently at the bar. So she left all the troublesome work to Song Yan's younger sister. Xiao Qiu wears makeup to resemble the person Meng Yanchen secretly loves, Su Qin. He saw her vaguely in his dream. He immediately woke up. Xiao Qiu used an excuse to invite him to dinner to come find him. The flaw is to pull back your hair to appear seductive. But Meng Yanchen did not show any interest in her. Moths and butterflies are two very similar insects but have huge differences. Although moths have beautiful wings like butterflies, it is difficult for ordinary people to detect them, but when I saw them, I immediately recognized them. Xiao Qiu's eyes filled with tears because in her heart she knew who he was talking about. Meng Yanchen continued to joke, butterflies like to fly in the sun while moths only appear at night. After hearing this, Xiao Qiu pretended not to know what he was talking about. He didn't bother to explain and then drank again. Xiao Qiu confessed that she likes you. Do you have to be like that with me? Hearing that sentence, he immediately said something like a knife stabbing into his heart. How much money does Xiao Qiu want? Xiao Qiu sadly ran out of the room, hugging her knees and crying. Thinking back, it wasn't worth it to give up like that, so I immediately thought of a plan. Back in the room again, some delicate tricks. Xiao Qiu immediately caused a big problem. Wening was at home worried that her son hadn't returned yet, so she called him. This Xiao Qiu had the idea to listen, but without saying a word she kept crying and turned off the phone. But that still wasn't enough credibility, so she called her friend crying and told her to come save her because she was being bullied. On the other hand, Wening has already started packing to find a lawyer. How can this evil powerful mother spare Xiao Qiu? Immediately sent a text message to Xiao Qiu asking how much money was needed. Without hesitation, she said 60 billion. She was about to send her account number when Meng Yanchen suddenly woke up and said, "If you send this message, she will immediately go to jail." He is drunk but his mind is still alert. He kindly reminded Xiao Qiu that if she sent her account number, she would be considered blackmail and immediately go to jail. She threatened her brother and recorded the video when he left and said she would call the police. Meng Yanchen doesn't care about the world and says if you have the courage, just report it. Xiao Qiu already dialed the number but did not call, but seeing that Meng Yanchen kept provoking her, she immediately dialed. On this side, Huai Jin also heard that his son had been taken away by the police. This girl has called the police. But this guy doesn't care. He didn't care about life and didn't bother to explain anything to the police. His parents outside were extremely worried. Meng Yanchen announced that he wanted to use his honor to show prestige to his mother. Hearing the news, Su Qin and Song Yan hurriedly went to the police station together. She told the lawyer to text him and tell him that if there was anything, they would go home and resolve it. But Meng Yanchen didn't listen and wanted to stay in the cell. Public opinion became more and more tense. Song Yan went to find the hotel owner and asked if Xiao Qiu was his employee. The boss was extremely angry and said he had fired her a month ago because he knew she was an unethical person and did not expect to cause such a big mess. Later, Song Yan wanted to see the surveillance camera but it was only in the hallway. While watching the camera, he saw a girl standing in the corridor in front of the door. The boss is sure that this person may have seen something, but they still haven't been able to contact him. Song Yan watched with a troubled face because the person the camera recorded in the hallway was Zhai Miao. Because she was worried about Xiao Qiu, she went to follow her, but she suddenly saw her friend doing that kind of thing. He harmed himself to blame, but Zhai Miao returned everything. Song Yan wants her sister to come forward and give evidence to save innocent people, but her younger sister did not have the heart to recount the past 10 years that she and her brother had suffered from harm from the Meng family. Meng Yanchen's mother went to the police station to confess because Song Yan had advised his sister earlier. He told his sister that he would not forgive the Meng family and had no intention of retaliating, because I don't want to live a life that only lives in hatred. He continued to say that he did not need me to be a righteous hero. I gave evidence because that is the duty of every citizen. Although Zhai Miao is very gentle, her harsh nature still insists that the Meng family pay the price. Meng Yanchen's mother knew that Zhai Miao had an alibi for her son, so she immediately asked for a price. But the important thing is that this person doesn't need money. Both of them were not sincere and even led them to find Zhai Miao. Entering the house, Wenning still maintained an arrogant attitude and asked what he wanted. Zhai Miao immediately replied that if you want someone else to help you, if you use this attitude, then go ahead. Huai Jin knew that people knew me and immediately reconciled and admitted their mistakes. But Wenning was not so peaceful and interrupted him and told her to keep targeting her because Meng Yanchen was innocent. When Zhai Miao heard this, she immediately asked again, in the past 10 years that you have harmed my brother, have you ever thought about his family? You stabbed us 10 times and we just turned it off, so that's revenge. Hearing those words, Meng Yanchen's parents immediately became speechless. Wenning asked what Zhai Miao wanted. She immediately wanted to return it like before, return the kneeler to her parents that year. Wen Ying's attitude turned pale when she heard it. But in order to save her son, she was willing to endure it. Both of them wanted to kneel down and apologize. Finally, Wen Ying decided to kneel down to admit his mistake, but due to old age, he could not kneel down. Zhai Miao couldn't bear to look anymore and said okay. Zhai Miao then added that whatever crime she had committed that year, she should now take responsibility accordingly and told her to confess. In order to save her son, Wen Ying actually went to the police station to confess. When the police took her to the interrogation room, her beloved son had just been released. She got angry and hit him, scolded him, "Are you satisfied now?" Meng Yanchen soullessly said sorry. He thought that her mistakes needed someone to take responsibility. If the mother wouldn't take the responsibility, then let me. She could only cry with 2 long rows of prayers because her favorite son blamed her for what she did to him and then turned her back to the interrogation room. Su Qin was arrested by the police for extortion. But Meng Yanchen is a true gentleman. Even though she did wrong to him, he still told the police that he gave up pursuing Su Qin's responsibility. Then he went to the cell to visit her. She still did not repent but still blamed him. Some time later, Song Yan successfully proposed to Su Qin, and the two walked on the grass in tuxedos. 10 years ago, because of their first sight, they fell in love while walking on the school grounds. Now they can walk down the aisle with dignity. The wife is as beautiful as a princess from a fairy tale, and the guy is no different from a prince on a white horse. It's true that the youngest pot is the one with leprosy, but for those of you who haven't found it yet, it's because of fate. Just calm down and enjoy this life. A few days ago, Wen Ying confessed all her mistakes in harming Song Yan. The police considered her behavior an illness in old age, so she was released on bail. Director was not so lucky and was taken to prison. After being detained for a few days, Su Qin was released. Like her friends in the dorm who gradually distanced herself from her and were chased away by other roommates to another place away from school. After the rain, the sun will shine again, all difficulties will pass. Mr. Meng took the initiative to bring them over to ask about the Song family. Although it was a bit surprising, everyone in the family happily welcomed it. Everyone sat down to eat, and Mr. Meng expressed his willingness to raise his glass of wine, both to thank him and to admit his guilt. For the first time, he knew what the warmth of a family was. Going out, Su Qin wanted to see him off, but he wanted to let Song Yan see him off because he had something to tell him. Two calm men talked together. He saw that perhaps Su Qin wanted to marry him. Song Yan immediately replied that he also wanted to marry her. Even though he had done many wrong things to him, this young man still firmly loved his daughter. He nodded in agreement, patted his shoulder and left. The next day, Song Yan and Su Qin went to see the room. Opened the door and Su Qin is very happy because the inside is decorated with all the things she loves. Kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, and even a balcony to grow vegetables. But it doesn't stop there. On the rooftop is an extremely beautifully decorated flower garden. The important thing is the million-dollar view when you can see around the city and the highway. Su Qin happily closed the deal, wanting them both to rent this house and told him to call the landlord. Song Yan picked up the phone and called her. Because of this house, he cherished its reputation and devoted himself to renovating it to enjoy this emotional atmosphere. Song Yan knelt down and took out the ring and proposed to Su Qin. "You are my sunrise and sunset, let me go," and receive Su Qin's nod. After what happened to his family, Meng Yanqin completely changed his determination to cultivate his mind and nurture his nature. He had given up his feelings for Su Qin and looked at her wedding ring and happily gave it to them to celebrate their wedding. The two said goodbye to each other. He suddenly received a text message and opened it to see that it was sent by Su Qin. "Being able to be family with you is my luck. I'm very happy." Returning to the previous scene, both of them were filled with happiness on the screen. China suddenly had a big storm that year. Song Yan and his fire station entered combat mode. Cancel on leave to work 24/7. Everyone is of the same mind. Everyone at home is praying for help for the victim. Television stations rode the storm to bring information to the people. The wind blew the billboard, injuring the cameraman. Meng Yanqin saw people on the side of the road needing help. He proactively invited them into the car to take them to the hospital. On the way, he saw Su Qin working as a volunteer on the street, reminding everyone to pay attention to safety because in front there was a collapsed hole. The two were surprised and looked at each other. The stormy situation made it impossible to hold back for long. He looked at Su Qin and felt a little panicked. Then a truck loaded with bicycles came and immediately took two bicycles down to block the manhole cover to help the people. Song Yan and his teammates sat on the leopard, eating cakes on the side of the road to fill their stomachs with their hands shaking. Before he could prepare my stomach, he heard that the nearby cellar was stuck. Many passengers were injured, including Su Qin's mother. The driver was knocked unconscious by falling rocks. Wening tried to open the door but it was blocked. At this time, Song Yan and his teammates arrived, and they rescued the trapped people. Wening tried to call out when she heard the noise, but she was exhausted. Wening tried her best to honk the horn but still couldn't reach it. Song Yan went up to check and saw something was wrong. A few bricks fell above and his teammates wanted him to leave. By the time they turned away, Wening had also opened the windshield wipers. Song Yan felt the noise and immediately broke the glass. Song Yan didn't hesitate, he rescued Wening. Looking at this person she always harmed, it was that guy who saved her. She reached out her arm in the dark for him. He smoothly knocked her out to the emergency vehicle. Everyone asked her if she knew that guy. Wening looked at Song Yan and said, "He is my daughter's husband." Soon, the storm passed. The whole city is gradually being revived. Su Qin was transferred from the emergency department to the outpatient department. Wening is like a different person now, very gentle and considerate. Warm, harmonious family atmosphere. On the other hand, Xiao Jia and Yan Jia also became a couple. Song Yan and Su Qin sat close together, enjoying the romantic scenery, just ignoring the afternoon. Don't hide your love and tenderness until you die. Make your life full of sweetness. Say loving words while you can still hear them and your heart still vibrates. Okay, this is the end of the movie. Please take 3 seconds to subscribe to the channel to support us. Thank you for watching our channel. See you in the next movie.